Thank you, everyone. It's a little bit later, 6:42 p.m. on, what is the date today? August 10th, 2022. You are at a common council meeting for the city of Wasa. Thank you. We have everyone present except for one alder who's excused. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up is roll call.
We have 10 members present.
Perfect, thank you. And next up, I have a proclamation I would like to read. This one is inspired by somebody in our audience who is a strong fighter, and I'm just so excited to share this this proclamation with our community again. So, whereas by proclaiming September as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, we call attention to a disease that affects women across our community and nation. Ovarian cancer causes more deaths than any other female reproductive system cancers and is the 5th leading cause of cancer-related deaths among women. And whereas ovarian cancer affects women of all ages and all backgrounds, and women who are mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, community members, and valued friends. And whereas the American Cancer Society estimates that 19,880 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2022, and that 12,810 women will die from this disease. And whereas a woman's risk of getting ovarian cancer during her lifetime is about 1 in 78, and her lifetime chance of dying from ovarian cancer is about 1 in 108. And whereas the 5-year survival rate of women diagnosed with ovarian cancer is 47%, and whereas women who are middle-aged or older, who have family history of ovarian or breast cancer, or have had certain cancers in the past, are at increased risk of developing ovarian cancer. And whereas it is critical that scientists and doctors accelerate their research into ovarian cancer while continuing to work on prevention, treatment, and a cure, now therefore be it resolved that I, Katie Rosenberg, Mayor of the City of Wasa, do hereby proclaim September 2022 as Ovarian Cancer Month in the City of Wasa, State of Wisconsin, and I commend this observance to all citizens. Make sure you're taking care of your health. Okay, I'm glad to pass off the mic to my friend Michelle at Barry Dunn, and she's excited to present to us in all of Wasa our first strategic plan. So she'll give you all the background and everything. Michelle, feel free to take it away.
She's down there currently. I'll get her up.
We have you on our screen, and we will be able to see all of your items, so thank you.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Let me know if there are any issues there. I'm going to share my screen in a moment here, but before I do that, I just want to take a moment to let you know what a thorough process this has been. It took a little longer than we expected, but the extra time we spent on it was well worth it. A decision was made later in the process to add an age-friendly community a component to the plan, which we didn't envision early on, so it was really worthy of our process to spend the extra time to create that. As the mayor mentioned, I'm Michelle Kennedy. I'm a manager for Barry Dunn's local government practice group. One of the things that we specialize in is strategic planning for municipalities, and I have been doing strategic planning work for city and county governments for over 25 years. I spent part of my career in public service, and this work means a lot to me. I'm originally from the Midwest. I was born and raised in Iowa, so it was really neat to do a project for a Midwestern state and community. And so really appreciated that, being able to come back to my roots. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through a little bit of what we're going to cover tonight, a little bit of background on our process and how we went about creating the plan. And then we're going to walk through the plan as it exists and give you all the opportunity to discuss it a little bit and to reflect on it and to let us know if there are edits or changes or improvements that you would like to offer as you review the draft. So if there are no questions, I'll go ahead and just dive right in. Is that okay?
That sounds great. I'm turning my mic off
Okay.
so I don't accidentally loudly gulp or something while you're talking.
All right, I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see that?
We are pulling it up.
Good?
Yep, we
Are
have
you
it.
able to see-
Yep, we have
see
it in
it?
front of us. Yep. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you can see it, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Excellent. So let's start with just a brief agenda to what we're going to cover today. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so we've kind of done the welcome in the intro. I'm going to recap the planning process. We're going to do a facilitated discussion of the strategic plan, and then we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about next steps and maybe getting some guidance from all of you about the progress reporting and the frequency with which you'd like to see that, and how you as a city council want to stay engaged in the actual strategic plan as it gets implemented. So in terms of the project design, the project had 3 phases. We spent some time up front with the mayor and a project team that she put together, which included some of the leadership within the city government, to really plan a good process. And as part of that process, Barry Dunn brought on a subcontractor to give us some special facilitation expertise and insight into Wausau's Hmong community. And so we decided to make that an important factor of how we would approach that project. So we had, a more than adequate input from that very important population in the city of Wasa. So once we planned the project and made the decision that we wanted to appoint a steering committee, which was comprised of members of the community, some alderpersons, also members of the senior leadership team for the city. So it was a mixture of folks, a really well-rounded group that served as the steering committee that did the plan development work. So we put all of that together intentionally. It spent some time talking about how we wanted to approach stakeholder engagement. And then we launched the stakeholder engagement, which included a broad array of activities, which I'll touch on in just a minute. And that included, sort of in-person contact with stakeholders, interviews, virtual opportunities, as well as survey opportunities, and pulled all of that information together into an environmental scan that we used to inform the process. And I'll speak about that environmental scan and what its purpose was. And then the third phase was actual development of the strategic plan, bringing the steering committee together, developing the vision based on community and stakeholder input we received, and then building out the rest of the plan, which you'll get to see in a moment here. So the environmental scan was the basis for the strategic plan, and its purpose is to make sure that everyone involved in the process understands what the current environment is that the city is functioning in. So looking for opportunities and challenges or trends that might affect the city's focus or effectiveness, things that it might have to deal with as you move forward into the future. And then again, making sure that everyone who's involved in the plan development had a shared understanding of the city's current environment. It also provides that sort of future orientation to, if we could dream about how we want our community to be 5 or 10 years from now, what would that look like? And build that into the scan as well. And so this is what can help you successfully navigate some of the forces and the obstacles that could get in the way of helping you achieve a shared vision for your community. So that was the purpose of the scan. We spent quite a bit of time putting that together. So the way we approached that was to identify the different important stakeholder groups that needed to participate in the process. So you can see a list of those there, of people that we engaged in one way, shape, or form, whether it was a survey, whether it was a community forum, whether it was a one-on-one interview or a group interview. In case those of you don't know what BIPOC means, I've had some questions about that with other groups. It's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color is what that acronym stands for. So as you can see at the bottom there, by the time we were done, we had interviews with more than 50 stakeholders. We had the social pinpoint community engagement platform as a mechanism to get virtual engagement from the community. I'll show you a few results from that in a moment here. From that, there were 86 survey responses, which isn't a high number, but for strategic planning, what we're really looking for the survey to do is to help us validate the themes that we're hearing in the other stakeholder engagement. So it's not statistically valid, but it's another source of input that helps us thematically understand what the interests of the community are, what the issues are, and what people want to be focused on in the future. So we held, I think there were 3 community forums, a couple were done virtually, and then we did one in a hybrid format where people were actually able to come on site to City Hall to participate in person. We looked at other city plans, and then we looked at demographic and economic data to round out our environmental scan. So it would be data informed. This is a piece of what the social pinpoint site looked like. We had 3 different pieces of functionality on that site. We had something called an ideas wall, where those 6 categories you see at the bottom of the slide were the different categories we gave people the opportunity to comment on. And they could literally post a comment of anything they wanted to say. That those comments could be posted by community members, by employees, and they were just ways for people to share specific ideas they had for Wasa's future in those 6 categories. And we received a total of 28 individual comments through that portion of the site. Then the 86 survey responses, there was the survey tool there. And then we had an Envision Our Future, which was an open-ended section where you could actually write your future vision statement or your paragraph or 2 about your ideal future for the city. And a few people took advantage of that. So the site, as you can see, generated a lot of traffic. Almost 2,000, close to 2,000 people looked at the site. And the people that really had something to say took part in the survey or gave us comments. So just so everybody has the same understanding of the process and what is involved in a strategic plan, we want to make it really clear that the strategic plan really describes what you're going to do. It conveys a vision of where you're going. It has goals and objectives that will be the steps that you take to achieve that vision. And then we identify performance measures so the city can evaluate its progress as it implements the strategic plan. The focus on how, the actual tasks, and which department leaders will be responsible for doing what and which collaborative partners will be involved, that will be part of an implementation plan that will get created once you all adopt this plan and say, yes, this is our strategic direction for the city. It really needs to be reviewed as a living document. So the document is not static from the standpoint, you're not going to be changing it every month. However, your environment will change. And so if you have a 5-year vision and you have some shorter term objectives, which you will see in the plan, you're going to want to review those objectives at least annually, if not quarterly, to say, are we still on track and are there some things that we need to change? So the point is that it's a living document and it should guide your decision making about how you allocate resources and what kinds of long range capital investments do you need to be considering and putting in your capital program to make sure that you can achieve your vision. And then, really providing some direction around economic development and community services that are really more shorter term than what would be included in your comprehensive plan. Then it's a tool for government transparency and accountability. We really believe in strategic planning because it provides not only direction for everybody so you can all row in the same direction, but that it provides your residents and taxpayers and the general public with information about how the city is investing its resources and then the benefits that are resulting from those strategic investments. So it's an important tool for your own guidance and your own knowing what you want to do and how and what you want to invest in, but then the tool for your community as well, to hold you accountable and to be transparent about what the city is engaged in terms of getting good results for the community. So there were a couple of different components of the plan development process. We did the high level work with the steering committee. They helped define the mission, the vision, the strategic priorities, and the strategic goals. And you'll see all of those in the plan as we look at it. And then we worked further with city leadership, coming out of getting all of that guidance from the steering committee, to develop the current and future state descriptions for each of the priorities, to develop specific short-term objectives that could be achieved in, a 1 to 3 year period, and then performance measures to measure progress. So that's how we structured the development of the plan. I'm going to stop there and see if there are questions from any of the council members before we actually dive into looking at the plan itself.
Looking around, I don't see anybody requesting to speak. I think we're ready to keep rolling. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now we're going to get into the document itself. So here's the opening part of the document. We have your mission statement, which is very short, and the mission statement describes your purpose as a city government. And what the steering committee came up with was that the purpose of city government is to enhance quality of life in the community, and then to foster a sense of belonging for everyone that's there. And that can even include your business community. It isn't just residents, it's everybody that's part of, all organizations, all people that are part of the city of Wausau. And the 4 generations to come was to say that, we don't want to just do this purpose and mission today. We want to do it so that we have a viable city government for the generations that will come after those of us who are leading now. So in the vision statement, this is your aspirational future that you wanted to create. And this gets a little bit more descriptive about the things that you want to focus on. Yes, you may have a social and arts and cultural experience currently in the city, but maybe not at the level that you want it to be. So capitalizing on those things, taking them to the next level, your outdoor recreation experiences there. So kind of trying to describe if we were to create an ideal future for our community, what would that look and feel like? And so this vision statement is the articulation of that, using descriptive words like fun and vibrant and highly connected, with a thriving economy, and the whole idea that people can be there and have success and achieve happiness. So that was the aspirational vision that the steering committee developed. And then one thing that emerged out of that process that doesn't always happen and we didn't necessarily anticipate was a motto or a tagline that could be used to brand and market the city of Wasa. And so, welcome home to Wasa. It's where you belong. And that goes along with your mission statement and also helps to convey your vision statement as well. So that was the sort of high level vision and mission guidance that the steering committee provided. Are there any thoughts or comments about what you see there?
I don't see anyone chomping at the bit to talk, but I'm excited about the motto and tagline. I knew about this, but it kind of reminds me of a retro pair of Jordans, because that is our sign, but we've added to it.
The steering committee felt that it was really important to get the belonging aspect in that sort of shorter motto statement or tagline. And then the idea that Wasa is your home and that you're welcome here, and everybody who wants to come home can be welcome in Wasa.
I do want to note we have Alder Gisselman who has requested to speak.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You made reference to demographic and economic data that you reviewed. The line thriving economy where everyone has the opportunity to achieve success and happiness. I would just like to know where that thriving, sorry to say, I don't see that at times, a thriving economy in Wasa. I think we really have to work at it, but I see a lot of
That's the point.
poverty. I see some affordable housing needs. I feel a need really that we have to work towards a thriving economy. I would just like to know where you, or the data that you saw that would reflect a thriving economy. I'm sure that to use that word thriving, I think sets it really as as a good thing. I'm sorry, I just don't see that at times, and I'm
It's not-
curious
so
to see how
you're-
you came to use that word.
We came to use that word because this is a vision statement. So everyone acknowledged you don't have a highly diversified, necessarily thriving economy at this time. This is the aspirational statement for what you want to become. So the steering committee intentionally chose that as an aspirational vision, knowing that it's something the city really needs to work on. And so you will see as one of the strategic priorities in this plan, a priority that's focused on the economy, because that is an area that the steering committee and the data pointed to needs work.
I have a
So
follow-up.
we're actually in agreement with you.
I have a follow-up from Alder Gisselman.
Well, just so that you use the word is, Wasa is a fun, and carrying on through that whole sentence, and that to me, that puts it in the present more than as opposed to a vision statement and something into the future. Thank you.
So one thing, we could actually make a change there if it makes sense. So some communities like to state the vision statement as if they're already doing it, even if they're not. So that's a preference. We could say Wasa is striving to become, or Wasa intends to become. So if that present tense language is like throwing you off, we can definitely make a change that says that this is a future-oriented, that's very clear that this is a future-oriented statement.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for asking the question, and so we could clarify that. All right, core values. We did not change these. These were values that employees had created in a different process. And we felt that they're important to reflect in the strategic plan because these are the ways in which the city and employees operate in order to serve residents of the community as a whole. And we felt that the strategic plan kind of is better off imbued with these already stated core values that have been part of the city's culture for quite some time. So these are not new. Any thoughts about the core values?
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. The innovation core value is new.
Oh, yes, we did add that.
Yeah, so, yeah, we
Take
have
that
them,
back.
we've had them posted in the room here for years, so we should all have the first four memorized, so, thank you.
You're right. I forgot that we added the innovation, and now I'm remembering the conversation with the steering committee, and they're like, there's something that's very much missing from these core values. And I think employees would probably say it wasn't hard to add that one because we are already creative and we do try to innovate. So this just underscores that. All right, let's move to the strategic priorities. So the steering committee identified 5 priority areas for focus for this strategic plan. And this is a 5-year plan. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a decision was made a little bit down the road to add on, after speaking with ARP and realizing there was a real opportunity here, we added on an age-friendly community plan with some initial steps that are included in the appendix of the document. So we'll look at all of these areas. So the first area is about thriving economy. And here we do state what some of the challenges are in the current state description. So you'll see a parallel construction. Each of these strategic priorities has a definitive goal that is an outcome-oriented statement of where we're trying to go. in focusing on the economy, and then a description of the current state as well as a description of the future state that we're trying to achieve. So I'll give you a moment to take a quick review of those and see if you want to have any discussion about how those are characterized.
I think we're good to continue
move
talking.
on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now we get into the specifics. So these are the objectives that we worked on with direction from the steering committee, but really kind of got down and rolled up our sleeves with a city leadership to say, well, okay, if that's our long-term vision for thriving economy, how are we going to get there, and what are some things that we're going to do in the short term? So these are the 5 objectives that were identified for the thriving economy priority, and then the performance measures that city leadership expects to track so that you can look to see what kind of progress you are making. And just for clarification, the idea was not to necessarily have a performance metric published in the plan for each measure, for each objective, but to try to identify some measures that would be good measures of a thriving economy. Are we moving the needle? Are we making a difference?
Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On that note, and with the performance measures, I think it would apply probably to all the various facets and objectives, but I think it will likely be important to have additional key performance indicators added to some of these elements. Will that be possible?
This is our plan. We get to do with it what we need to do. So I guess the answer is yes.
So, yes, the answer is yes. Some guidance that Barry Dunn provided the group, and you can have further discussion about this, and the council can clearly suggest additional data that it wants to track based on these. If you're a government that has not been doing a lot of performance measurement around strategy, we recommend that you start not by trying to measure everything, because oftentimes what happens is that you start to measure many, many things, and then the whole measurement process just kind of dies because there's not enough capacity to measure lots and lots of things. So what we recommend is that you pick some important measures and you start with those and you add as you go along. We don't want to outstrip the staff's capacity to actually measure progress. So you can take this as far as you want to go, but our advice is always to start with a handful of measures, get practiced in reporting on them regularly, and then as you see additional opportunities and you feel that you have the discipline in place and there's the capacity available, that you add some measures as you go along.
Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. That makes sense. And on this particular realm of economic success, if it's going to have limited metrics or key performance indicators, it seems like some of these metrics are really more from the business or supply side of the equation, and I feel like an increase in median household income, hopefully, at least the median household income itself, would be a good measurement of economic success for the people themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion, and that seems like one we could just add right out of the gate.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I guess I have a question on objective number 1, optimize room tax revenue investment to contribute to our thriving economy. Room tax, I guess I'm surprised room tax is a key component of this, because, I mean, room tax is tourism tax. And so, yes, we want tourism and we want visitors, but the state of Wisconsin heavily regulates how much room tax we can retain and what we can use it for. And the driving force in our economy here in this building is property tax. So I guess I'm confused why room tax is taking center stage here, because Wausau has a system by which it retains some room tax for purposes that generate tourism, but we are statutorily obligated to use the rest of the room tax collection to drive more tourism. So, it's such a narrow scope overall. I mean, our goal needs to be to facilitate growth opportunities and increase the value of this community through expanding our property tax base. And, the only way that you can create tax relief for your residents is to have more people paying taxes into that system, and that's not room tax. So I'm curious why there's no mention of facilitating growth opportunities. We're not talking about job creation. We're not talking about talent acquisition or talent retention here, but yet we start off with room tax. So help me understand that.
Do you want me to start us off on that discussion?
That would be great, because I feel like as the neutral facilitator, I don't want to try to represent what the steering committee was,
Right.
why they chose that.
Yeah, so I think this had a lot to do with the direction the steering committee started talking about. As you know, we actually did have somebody on the steering committee who is a member of our room tax commission, and I think he found it very important that we called that out. I think this is one of those that we could expand to include, optimize not just room tax, but property tax, whatever else it is, those revenue opportunities. I don't think that's too difficult, but I don't know, Alder Watson, if you had anything that you recall from that discussion. Sorry to pick on you.
Yeah, I just think it wove together with all the other asks, like to draw talent, to create a fun space. And so that regional, the regional relationship that we were
Yep.
sort of looking at. But yeah, I mean, I think just tax revenue would be a good change.
Yeah, I think we need to broaden that category, because when I think of ways to grow our economy, room tax is not at the top of the list. It's a component, but it is not number one.
So what if we just removed room and just left it broad as optimizing tax revenue?
Yeah.
Alder Lukens.
Okay. That's
Thank
an
you.
easy fix.
Yeah, I agree. It struck me as kind of odd when I read this over, a few days ago. So, yeah, I would agree with Alder Rasmussen, and thank you.
Okay, we'll make that edit. We'll also add the increase in median household income as a measure. And if, we'll continue to work through here, and if something occurs to you back to this one a little bit further down, we can always come back. You ready to move to the second priority?
I think so.
Okay. So this was innovative public services. And just let me know when you're ready to move on from this slide. This is, I would say, is really kind of one of the internally focused strategic priorities. So it really focuses on city operations and processes and how you can make your operations more effective and improve customer service.
It looks like everyone has an opportunity to check this slide out. I think we're good.
Okay, I'll move to the next one. All right, so here are the 5 objectives and performance measures that we established, the group established for innovative public services. Any questions, improvements?
I'm not seeing anyone request to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move on to cohesive and connected culture. This one really goes to the whole area of diversity and inclusivity. It focuses on a future state where there's a lot greatly improved communications and engagement based on being culturally responsive. And then the incorporation of diverse voices into planning and decision making. Any comments or reflection on this? Shall I move to the next slide?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay. Here we have 4 objectives and a series of performance measures to support this priority. Oh, there's a typo in this that we missed in the quality review process. It should say better connect, create and support innovative. Well, we're thinking of Wisconsin beer. No, innovative programs to better connect newcomers. I'll have our designer make that fix. Sorry, usually our quality review process picks up on everything.
Well, the one that's in the packet, it looks like it was spelled, there was no typo there, so thank you.
Well, you know what I think may have happened when we converted it from a PDF file into the PowerPoint? There were some words that went wonky. So this must have been one of them that I didn't catch, and spell check didn't catch it because beer is a word. So
Sometimes
any
it
comments
fits.
on this slide?
I'm not seeing anyone. Oh, Alder Killian.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just again on some of the metrics with this one, it seems like, when dealing with different parts of the city and different districts, there are going to be, I think, specific issues that are pertinent and important in those areas of town and with those districts. And in this document, environmental issues and sustainability, those are brought up on multiple occasions. Yet when we look at, for example, if there are going to be contamination issues or concerns, it's more likely to be on the southwest side of Wausau than East Hill, for example. And so I think that it would be important that the kind of measurements used on these items are more surgical to particular issues and those impacted groups. I think that would be an improvement. So I don't know if it would be a possibility in the future. It sounds like there's going to be collective effort and contribution, but perhaps, older people would have the ability to inventory some of the key issues or concerns in their district so we could get input that is consistent with those issues to really maybe garner a more accurate feedback mechanism when it comes to specific issues. And even on things with socioeconomic status and so forth in this bucket. I think if we're talking about challenges in certain neighborhoods, I think it would be helpful if those neighborhoods were giving the city feedback. Thank you.
Yes, we actually, Barry Dunn, from a best practices standpoint for this work, we agree with you 100%. And what we recommend that our clients do, and many of them do, many of them have already been doing these surveys when we work with them to facilitate their strategic plan development. But we're strong advocates of a community survey every other year. And in that community survey, you would utilize one of the survey firms that specialize in doing city surveys. And they cover all of those topics. They come to you with a template that's got all the different types of issues you're talking about, and then they can create the sample so that it focuses in different districts so that you can get exactly the kind of data you're looking for. When we get to use those survey results in the planning process, they're so rich. And we think it's really important for Wasa to invest in that because, number one, you're not going to be able to know if you're making progress in some of these areas unless you do a community survey. And then that community survey does the dual purpose of you being able to tease out very specific, and as you use the word surgically, issues that are going to be germane, not to necessarily to the city as a whole, but to certain areas within the city. So that is something we strongly recommend that cities invest in.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think also we need to also make sure, though, that we achieve some balance and recognize that what we're dealing with is a holistic city plan. And so while we are gauging public opinion, and we as individual representatives need to keep our finger on the pulse of what matters to each area, I think that is a blended result when we get to this plan. And so we also don't want to create a system, either through measurement or management, that we're really creating a city of 11 islands. It's a wholesale plan, and I think that it needs to be blended because, Alder Killian is right. What is really important to some districts is less important to others. But at the end of the day, it needs to be a cohesive plan, and, it's certainly not representative of, any one area prioritized over any other. I think we need to be cautious with that, too.
Absolutely. And the beauty of that survey is that it's the way in which they demographically collect the data, and the way that they can sort it, and the way that they can produce the sample. So it is representative of your whole city, but you can look and drill down the data within a certain area of the city. So you can get surgically specific, not to the detriment of a citywide perspective, but it allows you then to say, oh, well, we have an issue in this part of the city that we really do need to be addressing. And the residents there feel differently about that issue than the residents over here.
Yeah.
So it's not one or the other. You get both within a survey like that.
I think that's key, though, to have that balance.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you.
All right. Fun and vibrant community.
Looking around, it looks like I think we can keep trucking.
Okay. Here's on objective number 4. I think we're going to, is the room tax one more appropriate here because it is directly talking about tourism?
Yeah,
Is it okay to leave it
absolutely-
in that instance?
Yes, because that's 100% geared toward tourism and the generation of more tourism. So this is probably the only place where it applies.
I'm not seeing
Any
anyone. Nope.
comments or suggestions on this one?
I don't see anyone requesting to speak. I think we're good to move on to the next one.
Okay, all right. And then the final one is the strong regional alliances. Just let me know when you'd like to, need to move.
I guess the one thing I would add to this when it comes to the strategic goal, we recognize that we do have alliances with our other governing bodies and partners, but we really felt that we should be in the driver's seat on this one. We want to make sure that we're leading the way in the way we think is best. Sometimes we can, put our needs to the side, and we didn't want that.
That's right, and that is the focus of the steering committee on this one was really about being a leader in the region.
I think we're good to keep going. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. And here are the objectives. This one was a little bit harder to develop performance measures for. We felt pretty strongly that once you started to pursue these regional objectives, that you could work with your regional partners to maybe add 2 or 3 performance measures, but it's going to kind of depend on what you end up doing, some of the things you end up doing. So I think this is one strategic priority where the performance measures definitely need to be built out a little bit more.
Okay, I see head nodding.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm going to go to the age-friendly community plan. So just as a backdrop, Liz Brodek and I worked with Wisconsin's representative from ARP to get some input on in terms of how to approach this, and that we got guidance that we can absolutely try to, create our connection with ARP's age-friendly communities initiative by doing this as an appendix to the strategic plan, that it didn't really have to be a standalone plan. And it is quite integrated in the other components of your strategic plan. So we created a vision and values based on our conversation with ARP, based on what we were able to see other communities were doing. And this was our attempt at kind of getting that vision in place for age-friendly community.
We all just noticed it says beer again, and it made us giggle. But otherwise, we like this.
All right, and this is directly from ARP. We felt that the plan needed to be organized in this way, where we were actually picking and choosing some of the focus areas that ARP has identified, and there's 8 of them. But for Wasa, we chose to focus first on these 4. Because they were interrelated and integrated in what you're already kind of doing and what some of your other strategic focus areas were in the other part of the plan.
I have a request to speak from 2 alders, but first is Alder Lukens.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I especially liked and appreciated the section on strong regional alliances, and also this one. I think it's really important to include. So thank you to the committee for that.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
Yes, and I see the strong emphasis on the landing at the YMCA, but I feel that there was a gentleman here for many years who felt a strong need to develop a senior center separate from the landing. The landing costs money, of course, but I'm not sure how that affects the lifestyle of some of the seniors. But I think there needs to be in this community some kind of a senior center. I think that's geared towards a variety of things. And I know that there was a possibility of that several years ago, but the landing sort of took that over. And I think that there's still a need for that separately from a community, for instance, the city, or maybe even a regional or a metro a senior center. And while I'm talking about a senior center, I'm just going to go to the other extent, because I think that there's also a need in this community, and I'll put a plug in for a youth center. I think that there's a need for a variety of things that engage the sociability of a lot of different groups, and I specifically target with this, of course, the seniors, but I think there's a need for that also with the youth. So, but I still think that a senior center of some sort, I think we came close at one time to a place maybe over on the west side, but I think that we should really emphasize that as bringing the social participation of seniors together. And I don't know if that would be a possibility or not, but that's just my suggestion.
Thank you. I have a couple
would
of,
say-
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're aware that many other communities are creating centers, and they're combining the youth and the senior into the same center, where there's places for seniors to gather and for youth to gather separately, but there's places for them to gather intergenerationally, because one of the values that comes out of the ARP age friendly is that you're creating age-friendly environments that benefit all age groups. So I went back to the values slide. That a really important part of being age-friendly is that seniors have access to people of different generations, not just their own peer group. And that is considered to be a high value and a best practice. So I think those two things can possibly be achieved together.
Thank you. I have two more alders that are ready to speak. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I agree with Alder Gisselman's sentiment about the need for multiple options for seniors. I think that we could get some value on that prior screen where we had listed the objectives. Under the objective that specifically references the landing at the Y, if we would add at the end of that statement, and other senior-friendly amenities, that then picks up other opportunities, because the gentleman who wanted to build the one a number of years ago was working on that. He passed away, and then his work group kind of fell apart, and that group was not able to gather itself to carry that project across the finish line. But in the future, if another one came along, I think we would certainly want to consider it, and there should be, I think, multiple options. So
Yes.
maybe add
I've made a
something to
note
the
of that,
end so
to
that
add
the,
that.
add something so the Y is not the only option, because it may
Yep.
not always be.
Good feedback.
Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you. I can make this quick. I second that, the comments of both Alders Gisselman and Rasmussen. And as far as intergenerational, I'm very, very much for that. We've had classes of youth and seniors, and it's been wonderful. So I definitely am in support of that. Especially, we do need options for youth. I've heard that repeatedly from youth. But the intergenerational, I would love to see that.
We can add that as a new bullet point in social participation, something to the effect of, create more, something to the effect of creating more opportunities for intergenerational interaction through classes, activities, and events.
Thank you. All right.
So final discussion. So the next steps are to actualize this plan, and we're going to be providing the mayor and the department leadership with an implementation plan template that they can basically take this document and then build out the tasks for each objective and who the owners of those tasks will be. And then I think the final discussion we would like to have with you, so that's the next step, so the plan can actually get implemented, is kind of hearing from you on your expectations for progress reporting. Some of the measures you would only make sense to measure annually. Some of them will be measured more frequently. Some will be measured maybe only 2 years, because typically the community survey that I described earlier is only done every other year. But that doesn't mean that just because you're not reporting as frequently on all of the measures that you can't receive progress reports as a city council in terms of where you are on achieving the objectives. So do you have some thoughts that you'd like to convey regarding the frequency of progress reporting that you would like to have on the implementation of the strategic plan?
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think that frequency should be at least annually. And I only say that because our council terms are 2 years, and at the beginning of that term or close to it, we try to set some priorities for things that we want to work on as a group. And at the midpoint of that, we really should be taking stock of our effort to see if we're getting where we want to go. And I think that process should tie into the implementation of this. So if we have individual successes in between, we certainly can get reports about that, piecemeal, but I think at least annually. And then we really should see then in our retreats if the priorities we set and the actions we've taken dovetail with the progress that we're seeing every year on the report. I think more often than that, so often initiatives take months to get going. And so I think if you're reporting too frequently, you're not going to see that progress. But
Thank you for that feedback.
Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do understand that perspective of annually, but given we're on a 2-year term, I think the challenge that presents, I think at the very least, we should be looking at biannually, because once we do a survey at the 1-year mark, it's going to take time to tabulate that and distribute it, and let's just say the results aren't so rosy from the people. There is no ability to self-correct within a 2-year term when you get it almost by the time you're done. So I think just from a timing standpoint, it would likely make sense to make it more frequent than annually. And then I just lastly like to touch on kind of an earlier comment that this is holistic. Well, perhaps, but holistic does not necessarily mean monolithic. And, this very much incorporates a marketing style, this plan, and that's good because I think the basic marketing principle is to identify and satisfy needs. But if we try to do that by dismissing the fact that there are different needs in the community from different segments and different people, I think then really instead of this giving us the ability to improve, it's going to present the optics that it's just backfill, that, hey, this is what we want to do, and if some part of town doesn't agree with it, too bad. So again, from a marketing standpoint, it's possible for a company and it's possible for a government to maintain a consistent brand identity and personality while teasing out the specialized needs of different segments. That's what would be done as a best practice in the private sector, and I think that's what we should do as a government. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that you brought that up. I think in a different kind of big presentation and effort that we did was our policing task force. And one of the things we realized when we sent out the survey to everybody was that we were missing some very key folks in our community. So we went out and we specifically talked to those groups that were underrepresented and on purpose, and then we teased that out. So I think that's an effort here. And I also wonder if maybe our check-ins yearly make sense for the whole thing. But, these are efforts that we'll have to be working towards in our committees. So maybe there's an opportunity to bring the strategic plan into that committee work where you're checking in maybe a little bit more frequently on those efforts and making sure that we're keeping up on this. So good.
Great, thank you.
That's an excellent suggestion. We find that cities that are more successful in implementing their strategic plans have integrated it into their committee work. So I think that will just up your chances of getting more success with your strategy if you do that.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
In talking about committees and all, I think that there, in the last several months that I've been here, it seems like there are some issues that really don't have a home. So I would hope that maybe through this process, there's a need for maybe more committees.
Oh, yay.
To look at things that sort of don't have a home right now that may need a home. And especially there's some large issues that have been presented here. And I think that if they had a specific home that would be a standing committee that would be effective to that need, I think then that would perhaps speed on the process, and perhaps a rules committee meeting or something would be in order. But I think that there are things falling through the cracks that I think this city council should take a look at.
We can incorporate that into the implementation plan template so that, we have that column that says, who's going to be working on this, right? And we can name existing committees, or we can indicate that potentially a new committee is needed to work on as you said, an area of the strategic plan that does not have a home.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. At the beginning of the term, I guess we'll recall that we spent a fair amount of time debating the mission and purpose of an executive committee, and we formed one. So kind of in place of what the old coordinating committee was, which figured out which committees need to do what work. And so it may not be a bad idea to turn this over to that newly minted group and, have those chairs that are sitting there figure out what facets of it their committees can roll up their sleeves on and then set to work. So
You might be excited to dust off that resolution because it does put a lot of the emphasis of the strategic plan commitment and making sure we're following through on that committee. So yes,
yeah, that would probably
100%
be the
agree.
best oversight spot.
Yep.
Good oversight, and also an encouragement to make sure you spread the work around a little bit, because If too much of the plan rests on a few individuals, we find that can be a barrier to making progress. So great to have good oversight, great to have someone kind of serving in sort of a leadership role, but make sure that you're spreading the work around so that you can actually make progress in all 5 areas.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other folks request to speak. So I think, so tonight, the point of this was to make sure that we introduced you all to the strategic plan. Eventually, I would like us to adopt it, but we have some updates to make and some more discussions to make after you've had some time with this to think more. So I don't know, Michelle, if you have more guidance to offer us on our adventure here.
No, I think we've been talking about all of the different things that will make it successful. The criteria for success is that you have objectives that are actionable, that you're measuring your progress, that you're working the plan, that it's not sitting on a shelf, you're having regular conversations about it. You've already talked about a best practice, potential best practice, which is integrating it into your committee work, having some oversight by your executive committee. I think all of those things are ways that you can be successful. What I would recommend next, and I mentioned this before, and Barry Dunn has a template that we can take and customize for you, is to provide you that implementation plan template and give you a little guidance on how to populate it so that you can get, the specifics down so you can get moving on your plan. And what Barry Dunn can do also is we made just a few changes here tonight. We can quickly turn the draft around with those changes in it so that you can be prepared for adoption and that you don't have to wait to do that unless you do want to have more conversation. But I think you had a pretty rich discussion around this, and obviously let us know if you want to have a final work session after you have a chance to contemplate it a little bit more. It's not final until you say it's final.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your help on this.
We enjoyed very much working with you and really applaud the use of a steering committee that was inclusive of different aspects of your community, and applauding the extra effort to reach out to underrepresented populations during this process, as well as trying to get as broad of constituent and stakeholder input as possible, which I think we did get a broad sweep, and I think the plan is very reflective of what we heard across different parts of the community and across different stakeholder groups. So applaud the city's efforts, and thank you for the time to go through this with you tonight, and let us know what final support you need from Barry Dunn to bring this to conclusion.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay. So we're still at the top of our agenda. The next item on our agenda is public comment, pre-registered citizens for matters appearing on the agenda and other public comment. We did not have anyone sign in, so thankfully they didn't have to wait. Next up is our consent agenda. That's file number 220701 through file number 120607. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Herbst. Any discussion here? I'm not seeing any discussion.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. We are now on to file number 220803. This is mayor's appointments. I have one for you here tonight. John Wagman. We would like to appoint him to the Community Development Authority. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Alder Henke and a second by Alder Lukens. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you. We are now on to file number 220105. It's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee advancing the proposal from SC Swiderski for a mixed-use development in the north zone of the River Life District at approximately 1200 North River Drive, including lots 6, 7, and 8. And maybe before I entertain a motion, I see we have one. If there's anyone from Swiderski who would like to give a little spiel on this, I know we talked about it at economic development, but if there's anything you'd like to just highlight, otherwise. Yeah. You are welcome. Oh, yes, you have one. That's why I said it. Inviting you to show us.
I know a few of you have already heard about this, but we're really happy for the opportunity to share about our proposal. So first we have this fly-through. This is our project that we call SCS Wasa. I think it's about to go. And by the way, I'm Jackie McElroy. I'm the Director of Business Development at SC Swiderski. So as you move through the site, you can see this is our parking structure. So that's the first building that you see there. And then we will move through the area that is the walkway with all of the retail space. And then it'll flip around. You'll see the front side of the building that faces the river. So this project represents about $45 million of construction spending and produces 200 apartments on this location. So just wanted to share a little bit about SC Swiderski so you know who you're going to be dealing with on this project. So I think she's getting the slides going again.
We have multiple screens here.
Yeah.
You're amazing, Caitlin.
Yes, thank you. Then on the next slide, just SC Swiderski, we're a regional leader in providing quality housing with professional service. And so we're a fully integrated company. So we design our buildings, we construct them, and then we manage them long-term in our real estate portfolio. So we are a private company based in Mosinee, and we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. So over those 30 years, we have no uncompleted projects, no bankruptcies or foreclosures, and we've successfully built through all kinds of economic conditions. Our projects are funded by a contribution of equity by our owner and then construction financing. So we don't need to raise equity, we don't need to have partners on our projects, we don't need to solicit extra investors, and so that provides a very transparent process for the communities where we work on the project. We have worked with all of the major lenders in Wasa and national lenders. They have reviewed all of our financial statements in full. They have underwritten our loans, and we've provided a list of references to you so you can speak to them about their experience and our financial backing for these projects. Next slide. And one more. And we've completed 2 multifamily projects in Wausau. So this is Westwood Estates. It has 80 townhome-style apartment homes. And then on the next slide, you will see our Urban West, which is 66 apartments in a 3-story building with underground parking. Both of these locations are fully occupied. We also have 6 additional locations in the greater Wasa area. And if you go by those sites, you'll see they all have different offerings. So every building that we build, every selection we make is individual to the individual community. We don't build the same building over and over again. So we have a lot of offerings in the Wasa area to meet the different needs. We currently have 12 projects under construction, and we have over $1 billion in development and construction right now. So the map shows all of our current locations, and we've worked with a lot of great municipalities throughout the state. We have also provided municipal references, so you can check on their partnership with us on those other projects. So this is our leadership team. I work closely with our COO, Nathaniel Popp, and Tom Muller is our Director of Construction. And then on the next slide, I'm very excited to introduce the project team for this project. So I have Courtney Wolf here with me today. She's on our development team. And this is the team that works up front on the research of our projects. And then they partner with the municipalities and work on the project planning and approvals, the land acquisition, and also our developers agreements. And we've gotten great feedback on this team from title companies, lenders, and most importantly, those municipalities we've worked with. They have a very good communication style and very efficient process. We also have our in-house design team, both structural and architectural designers. They collaborated on this building that we're presenting to you today. They have the benefit of getting feedback from thousands of tenants over many years. They continue to improve our floor plans and our buildings and design buildings specific for our community's needs, like the one we'll show today. And then our construction team, they're the exclusive builder for SCS projects, so we do all of our GC on the project and have a very experienced project management team and an on-site presence throughout construction. And lastly, our property management team will be the team that leases up the property and takes care of this property and our tenants long-term. So we manage our property consultants, we have painters, cleaners, our maintenance technicians, and our grounds crew. So a very comprehensive team, and they do an excellent job. On this location, we do have a property management office, so it's going to have full-time staff from SC Swiderski on site, as well as 24-hour emergency maintenance service. So they do a great job of taking care of the properties and tenants. And now I'll turn it over to Courtney for the project.
Our proposed site plan features two structures. There's a multifamily building and a parking structure on just over 2 acres, utilizing lots 6, 7, 8, and outlot 4. SCS Wasa will feature 2 areas of public open space. There is one along the River's Edge Trail, and the other is near the river channel. Our newly designed Sterling building will provide many exclusive amenities to our tenants. There will be 3 community rooms, 2 fitness centers, a yoga studio, a conference room, and 2 open-air terraces for gathering. In summary, SCS Wasa will bring 200 apartment homes. We have a very healthy unit mix and ample tenant parking options, not just in the parking ramp that you saw in the video, but also on the first level of our multifamily building, as well as exterior lot spaces. We've also added a commercial element to the site. There's 2 retail spaces on the ground level with access for both residents and the public. There's 6 levels of living. We offer 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, studios, and studio suites, as well as penthouses. A key focal point of our building design is the central glass curtain wall that you see here. We feel this will preserve the view of the Wisconsin River. The urban building style has been very popular over the last few years, especially in Wisconsin communities. Our team specifically carefully selected the exterior finishes, not only to complement the building's surroundings, but to complement the historical history of the city of Wausau. And our proposed parking structure, there's 5 levels. It has 280 parking spots for our tenants. This is the smallest footprint allowable for this particular site, while still providing the ample parking that's required for the residents. Our team is, our team has also added some beautiful paneling to the outside of the building to try to dress up the facade and improve curb appeal.
You're doing great flipping those slides. Those are renderings of our interiors of the units. There are 16 total floor plans that are going to be in this building, and they are efficient, smaller floor plans. So that was a selection we made at this site because we know people looking for this type of living are interested in living in the action of the community and the social aspects. So these are efficient units, but we have a lot of community space both inside and outside of the building, and we also feel this mix is a nice complement to what is in the apartments at River Life. So we're going to kind of widen the target market of people that can live in this area downtown. And then the retail section, we have this space that will be able to be configured to tenant specifications. And actually, since we were here last week, we already had somebody reach out interested in one of the retail spaces. So we're pretty excited about that. Also, that main level includes that parking Courtney mentioned in our property management office. A lot of inspiration went into this, so as I said, our design team collaborated, a lot of local people working on this project, so they took a lot of elements from the pedestrian bridge, from Washington Square, and they tried to incorporate it into the design, so hopefully you appreciate their efforts there.
We put together a preliminary timeline, so the development schedule would begin this fall, concluding when we're done with our due diligence, so right around fall of 2023, where we would purchase the land. The proposed construction schedule begins in very early 2024 and will wrap up around summer 2026.
We are very excited for a true partnership with the city. We feel this proposal does deliver on the objectives that were in the RFP to create a property tax base at this site. It was hard to design around the size of that site, but we think we are delivering something that is a quality development that's going to be attractive to new residents that want to live, work, and play in Wausau. As a company, we do have the experience and also the financial backing to get this project done, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge that we had a motion right off the bat from Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Henke, and I'm guessing it's to approve this. But we also have some people who have some comments or questions. So Alder Rasmussen, you are the first one.
Thank you. I guess I'll offer similar comments to what I offered in economic development. This really is an exciting plan because it does have direct local impact, both during and after the construction. I think whenever we can use a local developer and, we can then put people to work building it and managing it, and then afterwards increase the volume of residents that are living and working in our downtown, that's always a plus. We observe that prior projects constructed by SC Swiderski and Wasa have all been well received. The Urban West project sits in my district. It's been very well received by the neighborhood. They've been a great neighbor. Early on, we met with their immediate next door neighbor, the Village Co-op, which has like 65 senior units, and every one of their concerns has been addressed and was addressed before the building even kicked off. So they've been a really good neighbor. The other thing I was glad to see is that there is surface parking to support visitors and the retail space, but not so much that it's a waste of land. And so the fact that the ramp, parking is a necessary evil. I mean, when you have this kind of volume, everybody comes with a car. So the fact that they were able to confine the size, the footprint of that ramp to basically what amounts to be the size of like 2 residential lots, that's huge for us because it maximizes the land use. But, then also the parking and the vehicular aspect of it isn't taking over down there. So I guess I'm excited to see this one, and I'm excited to approve it in concept. This really then would, like we talked about in economic development, set our staff down a path of, pulling this type of project together, both from the financial end and the development agreement end, but at least conceptually today we could move forward.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I address these young ladies here? You have studio apartments. Are they, what are the size of those? Are they going to be larger than the required 400 square feet?
The smallest starts around 450, but there's actually 16 different floor plans, so I think about 5 of them are studios, so there's a various sizes within that to give a good variety.
Okay, and I being a former landlord and stuff, I understand cash flow and stuff, but my question is why no 3-bedroom and up units? Because, if you're going to be looking at attracting people to the city, even if you have a family with 1 child, you're going to want a 3-bedroom unit because with a child needs a room to play, or with the trend of the future being more people working from home, more people would need that extra room for a space. So why not 3-bedroom plus units?
We do offer a lot of 3-bedroom units at our Westwood Estates property, so we do feel we already have that in the marketplace. These units are smaller because at River Life they have kind of the traditional size units, and we are trying to offer something different for people living at this location, but there are other 3 bedrooms that we're offering in Wasa.
Okay, thank you. And could I address Liz Brodek?
Okay. Is it a question?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Ms.
Hi.
Brodek, Liz, hi, Liz.
Hi.
I noticed here when I picked up the city pages this week, I read in the article about the requirement of the 6.5 million or 15%, and I also heard from my colleagues that this was brought up in the ED meeting. Why is there not any financials in this here? I mean, because you've got it listed as, let me get this page here.
I can quickly.
You've got it listed as budget neutral.
Yes, so at this point, it is budget neutral because we don't have any financials associated with this. Alder Rasmussen kind of explained the process and the step that we're at right now, and I appreciate the question because it's a good educational opportunity to kind of explain where we're at in the process. So it was approved at Economic Development Committee last week, so we're coming to council today for authorization to negotiate a development agreement. So we don't have a development agreement today. We have literally the project concept. So at this point, we wouldn't expect to have any of those financials. I think you'd mentioned that there was, in city pages, I think it said 45 million and 45 million construction costs and 15% public assistance ask. And that is just the proposal today. So today, we're just approving the, basically authorizing staff to go forward with a negotiation, not a development agreement, no financial aspects, and not even the general development plan. So it's a really preliminary step today, which is why we have nothing.
So this is not a development agreement
Correct.
to this date, so
Correct.
we're not voting on agreement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You'll get to vote on this a couple of times, I think.
Well, that's what but my point is because, many parts down the line, when we're voting on stuff, when it comes back to us, well, we already voted to accept this, so you have to do this. And I want to make sure that this council is not put in that situation again. So, thank you.
Alder Lukens.
Thank you. I just have a simple question. So is this a property that is between WOW and the condominiums? Is it that property? Okay, so there's a parking lot or two there right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's right next to WOW, to be exact.
So my other question is, how much building or how much space, once the building as is in the proposed plan, how much space would there be between WOW and the building, and then the building and the condominiums?
Well, I cannot provide exact measures of that today. If we could possibly pull the PowerPoint back up, I could show you, I believe it was after our site plan.
I'm guessing this one.
Yeah, yes. And again, it doesn't have exact measurements, but it will kind of identify the layout a little bit better. So there is the existing parking lot there, and then we would be taking over some of this outlot. So that was put into the proposal as well, just to purchase the entire outlet, but there is some parking there. But then, yeah, you can see it is, right next to WOW. And then there is quite a bit of open space on the other side, where there's the river channel. So that walkway, that channelway goes right through there. So really, it's the proximity to WOW that I understand your question, and I could definitely provide that information at another date.
Okay, and then lastly, so as is, I guess one of my concerns would be that, I wouldn't want it to block a view from one of the others, so I'm guessing you take that into consideration, but that's, because it, in the drawings or whatever, it looks so enormous. And, I mean, I know we need the space, I know we need the units, but I guess that's, those are some concerns I've heard, so that's why I wanted to ask about it.
Okay.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the information and presentation. I just had a couple questions that related a little bit to some of the financials involved on both sides of the equation. What will be the price or rate on the units? Is there a range?
It's currently run with the same rent rates that we're offering in our Urban West building because we know those are acceptable in the market. So it's $1,150 to just slightly over $2,000 for the different floor plans.
Okay, thank you. And with the number that was mentioned earlier about the ask that was in the proposal from ED was between 6.5 and 7 million roughly. And the only reason I bring it up, now versus later, as was kind of suggested, that's down the road. Is I think when we had talked at ED, I mean, we discussed how the plan itself and the financials are intimately related, right? Like with density. So the plan, if I'm understanding correctly, the density makes it financially feasible on your end. So there is an intimacy, if I'm understanding correctly, between the plan and the financials. And I think you've done very nice work. Thank you. My concerns are more on a larger policy level, just broader for the city, as you know, in terms of affordability and kind of limited public funds to apply to various efforts. So I really appreciate your work. That was one concern I had, which is unrelated to your work itself. I think it's very good. The second was what Alder Lukens had mentioned. I brought it up just briefly at the ED committee meeting about the footprint on the river front, and that's just something that I've received, you know, some concerns in the interim between ED and now. So those have been challenges for me, but I do appreciate what you've put forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
I think this unit does really present a real challenge to the riverfront. I think that we, as this plan developed, as this riverfront developed, we were sort of thinking of some kind of a small village, some retail, some mixed use, some smaller units with those three as part of that plan. I think that this is really 7 floors or 6 floors will really, I think, diminish the riverfront, whether you are walking on the river street or even on the trail. I feel that this is just really too much for the riverfront in those spaces. I think we have to be looking at the city of Wausau. The taxpayers paid a lot of money for this, and I see another point where the citizens are being denied really some green space. Yes, we have little margins along the stream, along the creek. We have small margins along the trail, but really there is really no green space developing along the riverfront that is going to be for the public anymore. We have a great parking, we have a great playground, but I stand opposed to this. I think that we need to be much more sensitive to the green space, especially along the river, and I think this is just really just too much of a development on the riverbank in the city of Wasa. So that's why I will be opposed to this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Watson.
So sort of piggybacking on that, I found, and Liz forwarded the East Riverfront Brownfields area-wide plan that was passed back in June of 2015. And if you look at what the plan outlined on page 65, it actually had like this mixed-use, living situation in that plan. And so that plan's been around for like 7 years. So I think we're on the trajectory of sort of following what our plan had, in place. I guess my other question too was, I had a constituent sort of concerned just about general proposal, like details, sort of the minutia part. Those are all up for grabs, right, during the negotiation? This isn't going to be like the thing that goes in, right?
Correct, and like I said, we do form a true partnership, so every single point of this is up for negotiation, and we're very forthright with our financials. So we can see the difference with, we talked about lower density, how that changes. This site does have some extra costs. I mean, obviously, underground parking is much more cost-effective than having this separate parking structure, but it's not feasible at this location. We do have some DNR things that we need to take over, and we're taking the liability to get those issues closed out and monitored long-term, so there's some extra costs with those. So, yeah, it's a difficult site, but I think we're heading up the challenges, and we want to work in partnership and be very transparent, because I think that's really important.
Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you. Just a couple of other quick questions. Well, one is, did you say there will be parking on the first level? Oh, okay. So I guess that's really my only question. I just want to say that I appreciate that it's a difficult site. I appreciate the work that you've put in it. I appreciate that you are a local company. I wasn't here for the committee of the whole. I could not be here, but I did watch the video, and although that's a different parcel, I heard loud and clear by many people that we need rentals here. So I guess, like I said, my biggest would be, especially if that maybe can be adjusted somewhat with how it fits in that on the property, to try to meet the needs of, the residents. That would be my biggest concern. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I guess I'll just say that I agree with Alder Watson with regard to the East Riverfront Brownfield plan from way back. Originally, when we conceptualized the area, it was set out that the buildings in the center of the area, if you will, would have a larger density and a larger height to really give that urban feel. But then as you move north and south on the riverfront, between the South Riverfront plan and then the North Riverfront Master Plan, where, we're looking to develop also to the north, once we vacated the old water plant area, the area where Great Lakes Cheese used to sit, and then, out north towards Gilbert Park, those areas certainly would have a different feel. With regard to the public amenities, most of them that, in that area are already in. But I also think that when we talk about public participation, I asked the question of both proposers at the ED meeting was, are we looking at upfront TID dollars or are we looking at reverse TID dollars? And always we want to be looking at reverse TID dollars, because then the developer has not only undertaken the risk, but they have delivered the product as planned and begun to pay tax on it. And so then that public participation is coming out of the new tax that they're paying, versus giving that up front and then, hoping for a positive outcome, which is the way we did it, 10 years ago. So I think that we're on the right track. And I think that, with the finished value of the building, not only will we go to meet some of that gap that we have in the housing need, but from a tax-based standpoint, we really will be seeing some positive growth along the river as well. So I'm glad to support this one.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak to the history of the plans that were referenced. In fact, if you Google Wausau Riverfront Development Plans, it'll take you to a city page, and they have multiple. And yes, one of them is a 2015 plan, but there's also a 2012 plan that predates it by 3 years, and there was some massaging in the 2015 plan, but if you look at the original 2012 plan, and well, I'm pulling this from memory, I believe the page on it says, final master plan from the 2012 version. Perhaps there were other iterations, but actually it looked a lot different in the 2012 plan. In fact, if you look at the pictures in the 2012 plan, they even envisioned a greening of the roof spaces, so they integrated better with the natural environment. So just wanted to put a little more granular historical perspective on that. And then when it comes to reverse TID, indeed it lowers the risk, but it doesn't lower the cost. So essentially, since you're paying on the back end, yes, the risk of non-completion is not there, but the cost is essentially identical. And I wanted to make clear once again that I really thought this was great work. However, we have a deficient policy history in Wausau when it comes to affordable housing and expenditure of public monies, and had we done better in the past, I think the city wouldn't be so desperate for tax revenue now, so desperate that it's overlooking affordable housing. And in fact, that 2012 plan was not the only 2012 plan. The city wrote an application to the EPA, the area-wide brownfields planning application, and for 50 pages, it went on at length about poverty in the census tract. It went on about special needs of the Hmong and Southeast Asian community, and those were the themes and motifs in the application. That's what this city told the federal government we were doing this for. So, and it did sign to the truthfulness of that application when you look at it. So I'm not sure that's really consistent with what we're seeing tonight. I think the work is great, but just the context, the history, and the priorities in town, I think, necessitate perhaps a little different approach in this particular geography of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Henke.
Thank you. I do not see the building being so close to the river, and giving more room there for WOW would be nice. I also want to go back to our strategic plan and look at the very first picture on the strategic plan that we just saw today in the packet. And it's this photo of the beautiful Dudley Tower from the river. And I really feel like this has the potential to be another part of that photo from the river. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just in echoing what Alder Killian said, I wish that our Economic and Development Department would exercise the same energy it puts towards these luxury apartments as it would towards low-income housing in this city, because here we're talking about another 2 units further on down the line. Tonight we're going to be talking about the mall property, which is going to be more fancy apartments, for the one percenters, I guess I'll call. And I guess when is it going to end, and when are we going to start seeing some proposals, some more proposals, some equalizing it out of affordable housing for our low-income citizens of this city? Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I guess just a point of reference, tonight in the Finance Committee, we approved, point of fact,
I guess this is your third. Is there an objection to anyone? Does anyone object to Alder Rasmussen speaking at third?
just approved.
I'll object.
Okay. One moment.
We just approved tonight $1.1 million of new low-income housing.
Point of order.
Where are we going with this?
One moment. We just have to, we just need a quick, all right.
I'll withdraw my request because I think
Okay.
we're heading down a path here that's ridiculous.
Okay. On that note, sorry. All right. I don't have anyone else requesting to speak. So if we're good, we can get ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 6-4.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All righty, we are moving on to item number 150709. It is a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the assumption of TIF number 6 loan to the Wasa World Market LLC by 4-Star Market located at 828 South 3rd Avenue. Looks like I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Rasmussen. Does anyone have any comments or need a spiel? I'm not seeing anybody.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you. We are now on to item number 220806. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the contract with Granicus LLC for website design and hosting services. I have a motion by Alder Lukens and a second by Alder Watson. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. We are now into file number 211109A. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the modification of the 2022 budget for the Torney Avenue project. Looks like I have a motion from Alder Martins and a second from Alder Larson. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, we are on file number 211109B. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the modification of the 2022 budget for parking ramp capital repairs and improvements. I have a motion by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Watson. Any discussion? Nope.
Motion, you may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
Okay, thank you. I would ask first, please don't make a motion yet before I get through reading this, because I have a request, but obviously the will of this body will determine that. We're on file number 190921. It's a resolution from Plan Committee amending the general development plan at 301 and 411 Washington Street to allow for a mixed-use development with underground parking, commercial on the first floor, and apartments above in a planned unit development zoning district. This one, I would request that that we table this until we have a development agreement, so there's no confusion about how we're moving ahead with this project, and we can vote on those kind of at the same time or one right after another. But obviously, it's the will of this body. You seem confused. I've had so there's a statutory obligation for us to consider this, to take action on it within 60 days of when Plan Commission did. So that is why it is here. Otherwise, we would have kept it for you to maybe think about in a month or two when we have more information on this project. Do we have anybody, would you like more of an explanation from someone from Plan Commission? Yes, I have Alder Rasmussen, who has a request to speak first, and then Alder Gisselman.
I guess just a question. So this particular plan is only the zoning for the land use, right? So the only
Right.
part of this that matters is whether or not this use is appropriate for that area.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we should be equipped to act on that today. I mean, we know what was there already, and we know what this looks like. So it's not the money, it's not the participation, it's none of it. It's, does that concept work in that zone? That's really all this is, right?
I'm going to ask, do you want to join me, Director Brodek?
Because this seems like a really benign decision, I guess, if.
It usually probably would be.
Sure, I can give a little bit of background as to why we're looking to table that today. Basically, we wanted to, I think it's going to be best for the development agreement and the general development plan to go forward together. We've had some confusion, both on council and in the community, about where this is going, or, we don't have enough details to approve this. It is true that it is just a planning thing, and I compared it earlier today to kind of like cross-country ski tracks, where they're separate things, but they're in parallel. But it is basically the recommendation of staff that we that we table it for basically further consideration when we do have the development agreement ready to go and all the financials put together.
I'm sorry.
So I have a follow-up on
yep.
that, I guess, then. If we have the statutory 60-day obligation, how confident are you that you can pull it all together by then?
Well, this would count as the action. Basically, it just needs to get on council agenda within the 60 days, and then we would be able to table it and to allow the the development agreement to come together in a longer time span, but we do anticipate that coming next month.
Okay.
Alder Gisselman, did you have a question? Can you turn your mic on? Thank you.
This is just the general, but there will be a precise plan that would also, will that be attached? Will
Yeah.
the precise plan be attached to the general then at some time, or when?
It'll be coming back. The specific implementation plan would come back after the development agreement is put together.
After the development agreement?
Alder Watson. Oh, one moment. Mr. Hebert.
So the SIP actually just goes to Plan Commission. The general development plan is approved, or reviewed and approved by council. And then the SIP actually goes back to Plan Commission for final approval. It does not come back to council.
Alder Watson.
I guess I would move to table this item until the development agreement, and they can be presented at the same time.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do I have a second? I have a second by Alder Herbst. So the motion is to table until we have a development agreement to consider at the same time. All right, Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And since this appears to hinge somewhat on negotiation, since we're talking about a development agreement, two members of the body had kind of requested at different times some opinion on the nature of negotiations when it does not, when there's not an explicit directive from a committee or the body itself, not just in this case, but in general. So just, I think it would be helpful if the body could receive that at some point very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Herbst. Any other discussion? Otherwise, you're voting on a motion to table this until a development agreement is also available for your review.
You may begin voting. Motion to table passes 10-0.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 220805. It's an ordinance from Plan Commission rezoning 601 North 12th Street and 602 North 13th Street from a single-family residential zoning district to an institutional zoning district. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Hinkie. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is item number 220705. It's another ordinance from Plan Commission, rezoning 520 North First Avenue from a two-flat residential zoning district to an urban mixed-use zoning district. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Alder Herbst and a second. It's not forthcoming. A second by Alder Watson. Is there any discussion? Alder Watson.
So I think we had this one come back, right, about the zoning. And so they want to change it from residential to mixed use so that they can potentially put a parking lot, but that would require a different permit, right? Process?
Right. Yeah, so tonight, we're just considering the zone change. It's still a separate parcel and would need a separate approval.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, right now, this one's in my district, yeah. And there's just a lot of businesses booming at the current time. So I think switching it to something that could actually be more beneficial than those houses would be good. So that's why I support it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Alder Gisselman. Oh, you need to turn your mic on, otherwise I'll get yelled at.
We did receive a note. I think I question this because I think we're really starting to get blending into the business part of First Avenue from Bridge Street. And I think that I worry about the deterioration and the potential deterioration of moving south from Bridge Street on First Avenue, because I think this is sort of beginning that, just like we did across Bridge Street. I look at the letter from the resident, and I feel as if I agree with him. I think that we have to be careful of our neighborhoods, and I know that I will vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how many families will be displaced because of this because obviously you're looking at low-income housing here that we're, again, going to be tearing down, so.
I believe the applicant said it was a duplex, but they're both vacant right now.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, I think we're ready.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 6-4.
All right, thank you. Now we're at the point where we'd like to suspend the rules. 6B filing. This does require a 2/3 majority. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Henke.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you, everyone. We are suspended. We're now at file number 211109C. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving a modification of the 2022 budget for Riverside Park preliminary remediation work. If I recall correctly, this passed unanimously at Finance. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Rasmussen. Is there any discussion? Nope.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. And then we're on to file number 040306. It's a resolution from the Human Resources Committee approving the bargaining agreement between the City of Wasa and the Amalgamated Transit Union for July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. This also passed unanimously at the HR Committee. I have a motion by Alder McElhaney and a second by Alder Herbst. Any discussion? Not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you very much. Last on the agenda is public comment and suggestions. If you're still here and you'd like to make a public comment or a suggestion, you got 3 minutes. Well, I'm not seeing anyone coming to the forefront, so if anybody would like to make the last motion to adjourn, I have a motion by Watson and a second by Henke. All in favor can signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.